it's just so Trish, and you know how much I love Christian Light Education, and my most favorite product of all that they carry is a Learning to Read. I've done the unboxing, and now I have probably the best gift I can give you.
My name's Regina Yoder.
You've been teaching with Learning to Read for
17 years in 2 different schools.
Okay, and so I love this, and I've talked about it to my people that I've used this for my 3rd grader who did not read at all. And by the end of the year, only using the 1st grade products, we were in a 4.8 reading level. And some of that had to do with the maturity that he was already at.
Right.
And it was just getting the skills. And I couldn't have done it without Learning to Read. And the reality, I didn't learn phonics growing up. So this was my first real introduction as an adult to understand phonics. So, you want to let us know how it works?
Yes. The first 5 workbooks begin with 4 consonants and a short vowel. So they learn, they hear a story about the letter sound that they're learning, and also a little riddle that goes with it. Like for the D, it's Debbie duck, can say quack but can't say cluck. And that helps them remember the sound. If they forget the letter, some children forget like D and B, and so I just have to say Debbie duck, and then they remember which one is the D. So the first 5 are the short vowels and the consonants. The last 5, 6 through 10, are the long vowels, consonant digraphs, consonant blends, vowel sets, suffixes, compound words, and all more of the phonics. What I do is I say, like in book 6, it teaches to put a macron when the vowel says its name. I call that a name tag.
Oh, I like that.
Because it says its name. So far, the vowel has been short or shy, and it only smiled when someone asked what its name is.
Okay, you have to memorize that part, because that is like the best tool I've ever, or a hint, because I'm always like, put a line on top, or, and never giving it a really good identifier there.
You can even put a name tag on the child and say, that is your name tag. Now we know your name, like acorn. Mm-hmm. And on page 9 of book 6, it shows A with a name tag or a macron, and A with just a smile as a short vowel, which is called a breathe.
And I like that, calling the short vowel shy and the name tag.
Later they learn macron and breathe. Later once but at first, anytime you can personalize or make the letters or numbers even like people and make them personal, they get it much better.
So then, your success stories, I bet you have a ton of them.
I do. I've never ever, in all the different kinds of students I've taught, sometimes I only have 1 first grader, sometimes I have 5. I have never had a child go through Learning to Read and not be able to read. By January or February, they can read verses out of the Bible, and they're reading any level. They might not understand all the words, but they know how to read it
and how to sound them out and
yes.
how to begin. So if you had somebody like me, for me, I phonetically didn't really understand phonetics, but I just magically could just read. For somebody that is not as versed in reading, and they maybe are slow readers or uncertain readers as a parent, would you say it's safe to say that they can get through this, and by the time they're done, they're going to be with their child reading at that level?
Yes, I would say so. I've had parents who didn't know all these phonetics, and they're just amazed that their child is reading in that way. Another thing that this does is it helps them to be good spellers.
It does.
Because they know the rules. They know all, like I say sometimes that word, the reason it's a star word or a sight word is it doesn't obey the rules of phonics. Mm-hmm. And so it has to be a special word that we just remember.
And I love the attitude that there must be all these special rules, and it's like so I was given that lie, like there's all these exceptions, and then when I actually learned the phonetic rules, there's not that many
No.
exceptions
No,
at
not
all.
that many. But every once in a while there will be one, like kangaroo. You know,
I use that word all the time.
it's K-A, and it should be, you know, K does not come before A, usually, and say cut. So
The one thing I ran into that was a problem is when it gets into the accenting of words.
okay,
My dialect's horrible, and it does. We got to the point in my home we had to skip it because our dialect, and I just was in amazement. I'm like, well, they speak appropriate English and we don't, and we're gonna have to just go with it because we were literally in error. We're like, I don't know.
yes, dialect. I've heard that the people from the South that speak a little the Southern,
The mumble.
they do not get the syllable thing.
We don't
Use
get
the
it.
dictionary. Use the dictionary. Go by the dictionary.
Well, then it moved us into a spot where we were constantly confused when we were talking because we were trying to process, like, should I be accenting? And then I'm like, we're gonna learn that. If you ever need to learn it later, you can go learn that on your own. We're gonna be good without it. We're gonna choose to bypass that. So what's really neat, and one of my favorite things is I have taught this now. I'm in the process of my third time teaching this to my third child. This is my fourth child, but my third time. And one of my favorite parts is I lent this out. And because I wasn't going to use it a third time, because sometimes you might get, it happens with homeschooling, you're like, the monotony of this. Some people thrive doing the same curriculum over and over. And then there's some of us, which is me, which is why I've gotten to really give a lot of curriculum reviews. I'm a little distracted. Would be a good word.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, let's do something different. And how sad I was when I hit February and I was like, you know, I could have just done this and would have been done by now. And now we're starting it.
Right. Yeah,
But-
I sometimes at the beginning of the year I think, oh, I have to go through all of that again. But why not? It's always successful.
It's always successful.
always had success.
And sometimes you take, and in my homeschool, I did the last half of the books, and I made the mistake. And here's one of my best advice I will say as a homeschool mom. Sometimes we'll be like, well, you already know some. Where can I jump in and start? Do not do it. I thought I could do that with my first child I used this with, and it took us 52 weeks
Wow.
to do 12 weeks worth of work.
right.
And a lot of that was I hadn't built the confidence. He was already at a confidence deficit, and I was having to work against confidence. Where if I would have started in book one and would have let it be easy, we probably would have moved through it quickly,
Right.
and it would have actually given us more time than the time it took to try and fill those tiny gaps that I didn't want to acknowledge.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes parents will say, but they know how to read the short vowel words already.
Still go back to, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And it took me a year to do 10 weeks worth of work,
Right.
or 10 or 12 weeks, and I was like,
Because it does build up. It starts at the beginning and it just builds up and works up and helps them understand. It gives them the whole picture.
and then the other aspect too that I love, so I gave this out as a lending gift, and I realized they needed it, and I didn't want to dare tell my friend give it back. And I'm going to tell you my favorite part is this is so affordable. Even if you threw the manuals out and started over next year, it is still affordable. To get the entire Learning to Read kit, which involves 10 workbooks. Okay, so that includes 2 teacher manuals, because you use half a book, one book for the first half of the books and the next book for the second half. You get the 10 manuals. Then really the readers, which are 5 readers.
Yes.
And you can get the flashcards, the set of flashcards, and there's 2 sizes to get for them.
Right.
I did the small one.
Yes.
And that's really all you need.
Right.
You can get a few other add-ons, but the price point for all of that is,
For
Do you-
all 5 readers,
for 5 readers,
28.
$28 for the 5 readers that you
Yes.
can reuse.
And then this is for 10 workbooks, it's $35. And the 2 teachers' guides together are $14.
Are $14.
So that's $49.
So under $75.
Yes.
Well, then when you add under $100, you have everything you need. And the really cool part is when it's under $100 for the whole
Yes,
package.
it is. Yes.
And at the end of the 22 weeks, your child is reading with the skills all the way into 4th grade.
Yes.
All the way in. And when my son did that, and really what he got was the reading skills he needed to be through 4th grade in that maturity.
Yes.
So that's what I love. And then the reality is once you purchase up this product and you have other children, it's $35 every child.
Yes, that's right. Because you have the teacher's manuals and you don't
And you
need
already
to
have
buy
the readers and you
Yes.
already have the books. And it ends up being $35, which I'm going to tell you because I try stuff all the time. This is the most inexpensive, thorough, guaranteed way you can go.
And even if you don't follow everything that's in the teacher's guide or you do it your own way, it still will be successep because it's stepping them through all the reading.
You'll
and all
have
the
some
phonics.
parents, and I have friends that use learning to read and they literally do step by step every aspect. And she's like, I don't like this part. I'm like, what part are you talking about? And she's like, when you do this, I'm like, oh, I've never done that.
Yeah.
And I tend to do, for me, and the homeschool mom I am, I actually follow the workbook and pull the things out of the teacher's manual that go to the workbook.
Oh, right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm kind of following the teacher's manual on the aspect of what comes next in the workbook. And that's all I do. And sometimes I don't even use the readers. I've actually taken the readers and set them aside on the shelf for something for her to leisurely read that she knows she can read. And we've just read out of the workbooks.
Yeah, there's stories in the workbooks.
The stories in the workbooks and still do well.
Yes.
So, I've told you before, and I love to share, and I've done some flip throughs in here. This has got to be one of my hands down favorite. This is my go-to reading,
Right.
even when I don't want to do it.
I hardly ever, the only time I pull out the teacher's manual is if I have to read a story. Because
That's what 17 years gets you. You're like, we
I
can do
just
this.
do the extras off the top of my head or just what I feel like doing. And you know your child. You know what they need or what they don't really need to do.
And if you have a child that just learning to read is a slow process, some children are just going to be a slow learn to read. What the next part that I love is when you go in the manual, every lesson is actually broken up into a morning and afternoon.
Oh, yes.
Give yourself permission to do it over 2 days, not all in one day. It's okay.
Yes.
And I have to always remind myself, and I remind other moms, it's not when you learn to read, it's the fact that you know how to read.
Yes.
And take your time and do it well. And if you need to, you have extra practice sheets you can order
Yes.
that you can get what you need.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You're wonderful.